Happy New Year. We got the best news for the new year. I've heard it a long time out of government. The Saskatchewan government stopped with the carbon tax. Yes! This is a win for humanity and nature. I'm going to go on an epic rant and tell you all about it.
Who can tax the plant food? Who can tax the trees? Who can wreck the planet, bring humans to their knees? The government. The government can.
So you heard that right. In Saskatchewan, as of January 1st, the Saskatchewan government utilities are not collecting carbon tax on heating, so natural gas and electricity. This is a massive win. So what does this mean? So there is a massive carbon tax mandated by the federal government for natural gas and electricity that is on our bills, and it's astronomically high. So the Saskatchewan government's stopping Sask Energy and Sask Power from collecting that federal extortion tax on plant food. I'm going to get into carbon, a bunch of things. This saves just your average house, like consuming house, no production, no shop, no farm, the average house, $400 a year in Saskatchewan. That's a lot of money in extortion that's not being extorted anymore. I'm so excited. Now, it's really interesting seeing the Saskatchewan government to have the nuts to do that, and because like how it works, governments are all corporations, and Canada is also a sub-corporation. So, but Saskatchewan's a sub-corporation under the sub-corporation of Canada. So to go against federal mandate is, that's one step in the right direction. I'm so excited. But I have a big problem with carbon tax from day one that I first heard about it. Because what is carbon? Carbon is everything. Every life. My dogs are made of carbon. I'm made of carbon. This tree, this grass, and the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which is, guess what? Food for vegetation. So if there's more carbon dioxide, my trees go faster. More carbon dioxide, my grass grows faster too. Everything is better with more carbon dioxide. So for them to have an extortion tax on a very necessary, important element is mind-boggling. It's like taxing the air you breathe over all other taxes, whether that's fuel tax, GST, PST, HST, import, duties, capital gains, income, but carbon, oh man, it's so dumb. All taxes bug me, but carbon is the worst. So in the atmosphere here outside, it is made up of 80% nitrogen, 20% oxygen, and then less than 1% of trace gases, of which 0.04% of the atmosphere, or 400 parts per million, is carbon dioxide. Do you know what the recommended minimum carbon dioxide is for greenhouse growers? 330 parts per million. So we're dangerously close to the absolute minimum for plant growth. Greenhouses, like myself, I have a greenhouse. We have carbon dioxide generators. By adding carbon dioxide, which is plant food, into our greenhouse, it makes the plants grow up to twice as fast. More produce and food and oxygen. Yay! So the more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the more carbon in the earth and everything around makes everything better. Now, we're dangerously extinction level low for carbon dioxide in the atmosphere at the 400 parts per million. Photosynthesis starts to stop at something like 200 to 250 parts per million, and all living things on the planet die if carbon dioxide levels get to 150 parts per million. We are dangerously low. Now, for greenhouse growers, they say the optimum CO2 levels for a greenhouse is somewhere between 1,000 and 1,300 parts per million. So let's say the atmosphere outside here tripled, quadrupled, or 5 times as much. What is that going to do? It's going to make the trees grow twice as fast. It's going to make the grass grow twice as fast. And you know what nature does when there's more vegetation? Do you know what happens? So I'm breathing oxygen, carbon dioxide. Oh, here, a tree's like, thank you, Dean, for the plant food that you just breathed out. I'm going to convert that carbon dioxide into oxygen for you. Yay! And if I breathe more, do you know what happens? The tree's going to grow faster, and then you know what's going to happen when the tree is bigger and there's more grass? It's going to make more oxygen. I love Mother Nature. Nature is bloody amazing. Now, Dean, don't you care about climate change? Saskatchewan and all of Canada is going through one record drought. This has been the warmest winter I've seen in my entire life, and if you look around, there's no snow, zero precipitation. And of course, me knowing that everything is opposite land in Clowntown that I live in, society, oh, it's hard to live in society. But of course, I looked it up, and how about a government website, the EPA? Let's see what they say about precipitation and carbon dioxide. Do you know what more carbon dioxide does if there's more in the atmosphere? It makes more clouds and precipitation. What's even interesting is when you look up weather modification, so what do they call it? Cloud forming? Cloud seeding, they call it. Do you know what that is that they spray into the atmosphere to cloud seed, to make clouds, to make precipitation? Solid carbon dioxide in the form of dry ice. So if we had more carbon dioxide, I'd have more food in my pasture for animals. I'd have bigger trees. They're growing so slow right now. And up there, we actually have some clouds today, which is rare, very rare for this winter. It's usually very sunny. If we have more carbon dioxide, it's going to rain more or snow more, which is also good for plants. Now, some people might know me for my speaking out against carbon tax and speaking how important carbon is. But on my TikTok, actually, USA Today did a fact check on me a while back. So I'll post a link to the article if you're interested in reading it. But the guy standing in front of the compost pile saying that carbon is good, that's me.
Behind me is a big steaming pile of carbon that's currently composting and releasing massive amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, and also breaking down into beautiful soil, which is, you guessed it, also carbon. All life on Earth is carbon-based, and I spend the majority of my time on the farm trying to increase my carbon footprint, which simply means increasing all life. The more carbon that I put into the earth and the air, the faster plants grow. And the faster plants grow, they make more oxygen and food, which is a big benefit to us carbon-producing life forms. The government calls planting trees carbon capture devices. Every fall, the trees shed leaves, and eventually the trees fall over and die. And guess what? Compost and turn into carbon dioxide, so that the new generation of plants can grow even bigger and better and stronger. There's plenty of problems in the world, and carbon definitely isn't one of them. Carbon isn't pollution, it's the solution. Let's tax it.
When you get fact-checked by those people and they say, Dean, your claims are false, that carbon is a necessary element for all life on Earth and all life is carbon-based and carbon dioxide is good and carbon in the soil is good and carbon everywhere is good, and they say you're false, that's a badge of honor. Now, another interesting, really cool thing is, do you know what natural gas is? That's no longer has a carbon tax in Saskatchewan. Well, natural gas is a hydrocarbon organic substance that's pulled from the earth. It's mostly methane, which is CH4. So 1 part carbon, 4 parts hydrogen. That's what natural gas is. And did you know that in a high efficient furnace or a well-tuned boiler or something, when you burn methane gas, aka natural gas, which is organic and natural, that the emissions that it gives off is 99.9% carbon dioxide, which is plant food. So if you're burning natural gas, you're converting methane into carbon dioxide, plant food. Now let's say carbon dioxide levels weren't near extinction level lows at 400 parts per million, which we're currently at, and carbon dioxide was, 5 to 10 times as much as it is right now. What would that do? It could have ever so slight greenhouse effect, which means that the planet could ever so slightly warm at the same time as all vegetation on the planet would super increase in growth. So we'd have more food, more pasture grass, and nature would naturally equalize itself out by growing vegetation faster and creating more oxygen and depleting the carbon dioxide. So again, nature is amazing. If we had more carbon dioxide, which again we don't, we're historically low, we wouldn't have a drought problem now because carbon dioxide in the atmosphere creates precipitation. Now, I mean, some people would say, well, if there's excess carbon dioxide, which again, we're historically low, it could melt the ice caps. It could melt the glaciers. The ocean levels could rise. There could be algae. It could kill some things or change some biome dynamics in some certain things. The polar bears were supposed to be extinct. Now there's like overpopulation of polar bears. The ocean levels did not rise at all. What about the acid rain? Why don't they talk about acid rain anymore? What was that, the 80s or the 90s? What about holes in the ozone layer from hairspray? Anybody old enough to remember that bullshit? Now, I will say, humans, there's not too many humans on the planet. There is way too many stupid humans on the planet, but there's not too many humans on the planet. Man-made climate change is almost a non-issue. Dean, do you believe in climate change? Well, let's take those two words together. Climate change. Climate, what is that? Weather, everything around us type of thing. Change, is it changing? Well, obviously, right? So climate change, yes, that happens. But when they weaponize a word, like simple words like that, climate change, bad. It's so stupid. Man-made climate change, oh yes, could be an issue. Like one thing we could do would be to have smaller controlled forest fires instead of letting forest fires rip through everything. And the amount of carbon dioxide that comes off of forest fires is astronomically more than humans, right? So humans spend all this time to prevent fires to the point where when one does take off in a drought cycle, it'll rip and roar through the whole thing, and that's no good. So we could have controlled burns. Another thing you could do to help the climate as a human is to eat more meat and have properly free-ranged grass-fed meat like beef, pastured pork, goats, not overpopulating your pasture, but look how much feed I have with this carbon deficit that we have on the planet. Like, there's a lot of feed here. Now, those animals, they breathe out plant food just like humans, but they also create wonderful food for us. Like, isn't nature amazing? My goats also poop everywhere in the pasture. They walk all through the pasture, pooping all over the place, fertilizing. Now, actually, this pasture that I'm on, I don't even utilize yet because I need more animals to help the environment. So we have a problem, and in December, I was actually out cutting grass in December, which is amazing. Man, what a wonderful winter. But see how thick some of this natural grassland is? And there's weeds that come out and thistles and things, but it's so thick that it's like choking out the new natural grass that's in there. So what I did is, before I don't have cattle in here, but I'm going to get cattle, is cut it down so that the new growth and grass underneath can come up and grow and breathe better. And actually that would pull more carbon dioxide out, because this old growth that there's not enough animals to eat it all is actually choking out some of the green grass. One thing you can actually do to harm the planet and be a contributor to climate change and murder a whole bunch of innocent animals is eat plant-based proteins. So most people are fed, the city people are fed on super hybrid canolas and lentils and chickpeas and things, all of which are good. It's good to get some protein from those sources. But do you know what it takes to do that? It takes massive inputs and machines and fuel, massive combines, cultivator, frigging the land, removing all the grass to plant your quinoa and chickpeas. And when you remove all that grassland, kill all of the mice and voles and bugs and bees and every living thing in there that could jeopardize the crop for your plant-based protein, that takes away grass that's naturally here as part of nature, because then you have bare land It's not even that cold outside and my camera froze right up. Must be climate change. So we're going to finish the remainder of this rant in the greenhouse kind of next to the banana trees, grown in Saskatchewan, Canada, in the passive solar greenhouse that almost uses no additional heat to heat. So there are some things you can do. You can eat more grass-fed, pastured meat, right? Bug factories are not sustainable and they hurt the environment. Now, your plant-based proteins, although good to eat some, but that frigs a lot of the land and takes some of the natural grasslands and things away, and which is a natural part of the planet. You shouldn't have bare soil anywhere in the planet, but if you're building a house, for instance, you can spend exactly $0 more and you could face it south to get some free heat. Now, one thing that I mistakenly said in the past was reducing your carbon footprint. So I talked about how my small house that I built for myself is near carbon neutral, or reduced my carbon footprint. That was wrong. What it did is it reduced my input costs. Now, my input costs could be solar panels and green energy, or any sort of energy, or organic hydrocarbons like oil or gas or diesel or natural gas or coal. You know, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to stoke a wood boiler more often. I want high efficient buildings. So it's not reducing my carbon footprint, it's reducing my input costs of any kind, which is a good thing. If you simply faced your house south, it costs $0 more in proper design, and you could reduce your heating needs. Because even though things like natural gas are organic, naturally forming in the planet, and very, very cheap, you still have to do piping and things like this and still have a bill. Now, I've heard very few people, of course, but a few people say that quite literally, if we didn't pull out old carbon, which is like oil and natural gas out, and burn it so it gives off carbon dioxide, that we would have almost been extinct. We were near extinction levels. Now, it's only 400 parts per million outside. It was, prior to that, even a little bit lower. So what is oil? Well, oil is a hydrocarbon. It's made up of mostly carbon and hydrogen, and it's 100% organic. It's old carbon. Now, this debate isn't about how much of that oil and natural gas and things do we have in the planet to utilize, but thankfully we did when we had the chance, because we were almost extinction level low carbon dioxide, and by burning some of it, man-made, lifted the carbon dioxide levels to where we're not going to get extinct. But if we got 5 times as much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, all that's going to do is make plants grow better, so we have more food, and it makes more oxygen, and it makes the planet better. Now, we'll see how many sources that I cite, and I tried to make sure that it's all government sources, so EPA, government numbers, and the weather modification, cloud seeding. That information's all readily available. You can also check what they say, what oil actually is, and natural gas, what its makeup is, whether that's methane or carbon, and it's just old organic carbon that's in the planet. Coal, almost completely carbon. So burning coal is burning old carbon and releasing carbon dioxide, which makes plants and vegetation grow faster, which makes the trees grow significantly faster as well. And when you have more trees, guess what? That's future coal and oil. You can rest easy that man-made climate change is almost non-existent. And you can also rest easy that humanity is going to collapse. Not because of the climate, not because we're out of resources, it's because of the stupidity and dumbed-downness of society and all the stupid things. So whether that's wars or taxation or revolution or the slavery we're under, or economic collapse and starvation to death from sheer stupidity, not from lack of resources or climate change or anything like that, but because of your own stupidity. So when human beings are off the planet, nature will equalize itself, and all the carbon, old carbon that was brought up in the form of everything that's alive on the planet and in the atmosphere, that's going to create future old carbon and replenish the naturally occurring hydrocarbon fuels that we use in the planet. There are other things I like to do. I like to heat with wood. Wood is an easily naturally occurring resource, so I've planted 8,000 trees out here. When some of those trees are big, I can chop them up, buck them up, and burn wood and help nature instead of, them all dying, decomposing in compost piles, they shed leaves every year. That decomposes, creates carbon in the soil and the air, which is good. That's plant food, right? Or they decompose or dry out and then a wildfire rips through. Instead, I can properly manage that, plant trees, tree grows, cut it down, dry it out, burn it in a wood-burning stove for heat instead of having a wildfire rip through it. Makes a lot of sense. The stupidity of the system with the carbon tax was getting so expensive that I was considering different things. So if you take animal poop or any decaying matter and put it in a compost pile and put it in an airtight chamber, what it releases is methane gas. And what I could do is take that methane gas and burn it for heat and cooking that releases plant food as the emission. So I was thinking about doing something like that. It's not that I think burning natural gas where it has to be done is bad or anything. It's that the extortion of the government on taxing plant food was bad. So as the city worker that works in the parks department, riding a lawnmower and cutting down the grass nice so your kids can play soccer, is that causing climate change? No, that is not causing climate change. The one person on one lawnmower doing something isn't the problem. It's the 4,800 bureaucrats sitting in cubicles eating cookies, doing nothing, sending emails talking about how bad the lawnmower is. So one way we could save the planet is to reduce government by a whole lot and put all those people to work, or at least free them so the taxpayer doesn't have to get extorted to pay them to sit and make everything worse and get in the way for other people. Set them out into the world where they have to produce something like, bananas or apples or something, or beef or goats or something. And then that would drop the price of food and actually make the planet a lot better than taxpayers getting extorted to have them sit at their fucking desk. All right, well, maybe we'll leave that rant there. I think I covered everything. So I had facts, math, numbers, basic nature and biology. I explained what everything is, why everything is. I think I expressed the stupidity of the general public and society. Now, another thing that's really helped me with dealing with this clown world that I live in, that is society and government and everything is I left, and then I do good things on my own. And meditation helps because all this can get on your nerves, right? When they're taxing plant food and destroying nature because they're taxing plant food and things like that, it really, really bugs me. So meditation helps. Learning how to meditate. Find peace with the stupidity and morons around you. So once again, big thanks to Scott Moe, the Premier of Saskatchewan, and Saskatchewan for standing up to the stupidity coming from the federal government jurisdiction, standing up to them, making humanity better, putting more money in the hands of individuals from them not getting extorted at a cost of $400, savings of $400 in extortion just per household, let alone producers, right? Like my bill is more than a household because I produce things, right? So everything I produce can theoretically be cheaper when I go to sell it, right? And with more resources, if I wasn't extorted so much from the government, it's because I've received 0 government grants. This is all free market and me and investing capital to make things better. But this is a 3,000 square foot greenhouse. Quite literally, without extortion, I would have had a 6,000 square foot greenhouse and produced food for many more people and bettered the planet at the same time. So thanks a lot for listening to my rant there, and life is good. If you disagree with anything that I've said, you can go look at some information or do some math or look up some even government numbers and things. Look into cloud seeding. Look into what hydrocarbons are, like the organic thing. Look up the makeup of natural gas, that it's methane, and look up that when you burn it, it turns into plant food, carbon dioxide, and look into greenhouse growers and look at what's required for proper photosynthesis, and look into what's required for optimum CO2 levels. Look into the precipitation thing, that more CO2 would create more precipitation and help to solve the drought cycle that we're currently going through. And think about eating some nice grass-fed meat from a local producer as well. So that way you're not having to manufacture massive equipment and things and diesel fuel and a driver and frig up all the grass and plant it to grow your quinoa. And make sure you don't eat bugs from a bug factory, because that is very hard on the environment. Eat some beef and goat and pigs and chickens and eggs and live your life. Now, I'm not sure society's going to change. I'm still kind of hopeful sometimes. Like, this is good news from Saskatchewan. But you can leave society, learn how to meditate, and do good things yourself like I'm doing. So hopefully I'm leading by example. Bananas in frickin' Saskatchewan with no government grants. We'll see you next time.
Who can steal your money? With a twinkle in their eye? Take anything they want and give it to those who comply. The government. The government can. Who can tax the plant food? Who can tax the trees? Who can wreck the planet, bring humans to their knees? The government. The government can. The government can, because they tell a bunch of lies to make the normies feel good. The government takes everything we make, disguised as all of their solutions. Healthcare, inflation, pollution. When is the revolution? You should eat the bugs. You should just behave. They won't stop until you're 6 feet in the grave. The government. The government can.